Hi, and welcome to this episode of Our Guest Is, presented by My East Coast Experience Media in partnership with RBC. Our Guest Is introduces us to a resilient group of people typically called immigrants, but perhaps better described as entrepreneurs, community builders, and survivors. In each episode, we'll be hearing all about their journeys to Canada's East Coast in their own words. Today, our guest is Pernille Fischer Boulter. Hi, Pernille. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Great. It's so great to talk to you. So a little bit about you for those who are listening and watching. So you're originally from Denmark, and you came to Canada in 1998, and you have over 20 years experience in international trade. And not only all of those amazing, great things, but you have a master's in business. You attended St. Mary's University when you were in Halifax, and you founded your own company, Kisserup, in the same year that you arrived in Canada in 1998. Writing the book, too, for those who may not know, that the book Tales from an Immigrant Entrepreneur, One Woman's Story, has obviously inspired a lot of people. And it's almost instructional, too, to kind of not only be that mentor for women or just people who are moving to a different country in general, but really is a how-to guide, right? So why don't we start talking about that book, your book, Tales from an Immigrant Entrepreneur, One Woman's Story? What did you kind of hope to achieve when you were starting to write that?
I think I hoped that the road to establishing successfully a new place could be a little easier for other people. So I think I spent a lot of time writing about what worked, but also what didn't work. I wanted to share that with fellow immigrants, no matter where they are or established in the world, because I don't think it's only applicable to Canada. I think it's applicable to anywhere in the world.
What would be the best lesson one could get from your book? Is there something in particular that really stands out to you as the author?
What I heard from most people who gave me feedback or who contacted me and said, this helped me. I think a lot of people, the majority of people said, what really helped me was the never give up thing. Mm-hmm. And in Nova Scotia or on the East Coast of Canada, we have often been very good at attracting people, but not so good at retaining people.
Yes.
Luckily, that statistic is changing, right? But the retaining people is closely related to people feeling not to giving up when it doesn't succeed the first time or the first 10 times or whatever you do.
And there's also that sort of community aspect of it too, of just support from people, whether it is people who were born and raised in the East Coast of Canada or just the community that they're trying to, build and associate themselves with. It's that support that's going to help, people feel encouraged and want to stay here.
That's very true. Part of when you come from a different country and don't have relations or don't enroll in a school as a child or something is there is no network, right? Mm-hmm. There's nobody standing there welcoming you into some sort of activity and if you are a young person looking for a job or looking for establishing for a new life, that's tough. Mm-hmm. So your community really counts. It means so much when somebody in community reaches out, but you also have to engage yourself.
Yeah, and I think reading about you and learning about your journey here, that is really what you did and what you accomplished. And your book clearly is going to encourage and inspire people. And, when I was reading a little bit about you online, you didn't have a great start when you first arrived in Canada. So you want to maybe talk a little about your journey from Denmark and how you came to be in Halifax?
Yeah, I didn't know much about the East Coast of Canada. As many people in the world, Canada is sort of Toronto. And then there's cold winters, and it's this clean, pristine country, the call of the wild, but that's about it. So when I married a Canadian who is not from the East Coast, moving to the East Coast was a totally different part of Canada for him too. Mm-hmm. So we were both new to it. And I came from Europe with a lot of experience in the IT sector. And in 1998, just about 82% of all our exports went to the U.S. Mm-hmm. and the companies in the IT sector were very limited. So there was a focus on the US and the US market, of course.
Yeah.
So all this knowledge that I thought I came with from Europe, people were like, yeah, we're not really looking to Europe. So all the skills, experience, and network that I had was of no value to anyone.
Not yet.
And that was a big, yeah, not at that time. No, that was a big eye opener to me. I thought it'd be easy to come in with my experience and education, get a job, but I couldn't. And this is how I ended up starting my own company.
And the interesting story that I read about you as well, how you started the company on a boat.
Yes.
Do you want to explain a little bit about that and what that experience was like?
Sure. So I read a lot. And I read a lot about entrepreneurs in Canada, and that gave me the inspiration to do a list over the top 100 entrepreneurs in Atlantic Canada. Because I wanted to meet with them. I wanted to get my face in front of them and say, I can do all these things. Do you have any idea to how I can get a job? And on that list was John Risley. And I had moved to Chester when I first came, and John lived in Chester. And he looked at my CV and he called me and said, "Do you want to have a chat?" And he was a part owner of a manufacturing plant in Chester called Hobble Industries, who made propellers, winches, that kind of things for fishing boats. And he had this vision that it could somehow also work in the oil and gas industry.
Okay.
And he said, "Well, you're from Europe, Danes and Norwegians, all those people are so intertwined in this industry, and this gear is an opportunity there." So I said, "Well, yeah, I'll don't know anything about it."
I was going to say,
but,
did he just assume that you would know because you're European?
No. He was so smart. He was way ahead of me. He was saying the culture and the businesses and understanding, learning from these people and taking it back to Nova Scotia, saying, what could the bridges be? But as I know nothing about fishing, I mean, I'm allergic to seafood.
There you go.
He said, I said, can I go on a dragger? Can I go on a fishing dragger and learn how they fish?
Wow.
And so I ended up on a beautiful dragger, Anna's Piers out of Lunenburg, and for a few weeks. And I don't think that these guys that was on the dragger were all crazy happy about having this little blonde girl on the boat.
Yeah.
That's work, right? It's about money. It's long shifts, and so they showed me how to put on a survival suit and how to zip it up in case the boat would go down. And they said, "What's the name of your company in case the boat goes down for the insurance?" And I didn't have a company, right? I said, Kisserup International. So Kisserup is the town where I was born and grew up and where my parents lived. So that's how it ended up with that name. But it was probably the best trip I ever had in Canada.
Yeah. And your first job in Canada, too. So what an experience.
Yeah.
And not people who are born and raised in Nova Scotia don't even have experiences like that. Back to when you mentioned when you arrived here, you made a list of the top 100 business leaders in Atlantic Canada, and you called every single person on it, and that's how you got your first job and how you got your foot in the door. Was that nerve-wracking? I mean, I don't really know a lot of people who would just, even nowadays or 30 years ago, pick up a phone and call people, cold call like that. So what was that experience like?
I think the big difference is culture. Mm-hmm. So I later in life read that book, The Codfathers, which was about all the wealthy families in Nova Scotia or in Atlantic Canada. But at the time, none of these very impressive families or dynasties were daunting to me because, the Irving was just another name.
Yeah.
All these company names and all these people, I saw them more as an inspiration, where I think when you were born and grew up there, you might feel that the gap between you and them were much bigger.
Or there's this
And I
like
didn't have
bitterness or something. Yeah.
I don't think bitterness, but I think that's unreachable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she's interesting. Oh, he's interesting. I want to talk to him. So I didn't have I wasn't intimidated by calling them.
Yeah.
I think culture made a big positive difference in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to live, right? Like
Yeah.
I had to get a job. So
It worked.
yeah, it worked.
Yeah. So you support charities. You're a mentor to many people, and won awards, business awards, Women of Excellence, Women of Influence. How important is that for you to be a mentor for people?
The mentor part is key.
Mm-hmm.
It's key to my mental health, to feeling that I give back and what I do matters. It is key to our business health because it influences other decisions that we make. And I think it's key to all our staff, inspiring them to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mentoring part, whether it is youth, whether it's women, whether it's in Nova Scotia, ISANS, the Immigrant Settlement Association, well as fellow immigrants, or any of the other provinces, I think the mentoring part is so vital to existing in the business model that we have too. Mm-hmm. So apart from the very personal satisfaction I think you get from having the privilege of being able to contribute and even positively influence somebody's life,
yeah,
that translates all the way into what I make my money on and what I do every day at business, right?
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit too about recognition. So, with all of these awards and recognition that you've received after having a little bit of a hard time, getting into what you're doing now when you first moved here, how has this recognition changed you?
It's like any recognition. It's like coaching the soccer team I coached in Chester and Bridgewater. When these kids come over and they're so happy and they like tuck in your arm and they're excited, and it's the same feeling.
Yeah.
It's that energy and enthusiasm you get, and that translates positivity into your life and everything else you do. In business life, it becomes a little more concrete, right? It's the RBC Immigrant Award is a big, heavy thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big comforter. You're accepted. If you can't say this anymore because of Twitter, but it's like the blue mark on Twitter, right? But so it gives you some sort of personal acceptance. It gives you an idea that you make a difference. But the biggest part, I think, is the positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why for Most Inspiring Immigrants of Atlantic Canada, we really encourage people to nominate someone.
Yeah. Because
just a nomination, you don't have to stand there with the trophy at the end of the day. A nomination alone means the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just to be recognized by your peers and people in your community. You were named one of the most inspiring immigrants in Atlantic Canada in 2021, by the way. So congratulations. And you're not only a past honoree, but also the chair of the advisory committee for the most inspiring immigrants in Atlantic Canada. Can you tell us why you think it's important for you to be on those committees?
I think it's important that you have people on the committee who understands the journey. Mm-hmm. And the journey from Europe to Canada can be much less daunting than some other journeys that we see. Mm-hmm. I'm keenly aware of that. And we have a committee of people who are very well established in Atlantic Canada, inspiring business leaders. We have a committee that together, I think, forms that framework of the pattern of what Atlantic Canada is today. Mm-hmm. So understanding the people that come to Atlantic Canada, the people that establish, the people that stay, the people that create jobs, the people that have kids. That is so important to be a part of.
Yeah.
And as long as I can contribute in some way, I absolutely will continue to do so, whether it is on a board, on a committee, in my community, otherwise, as a mentor or anything.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear these speeches, and there are some beautiful, both in your past podcasts, but also on the videos online at East Coast Experience, you hear these speeches of how much it means to people.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would double my volunteering if I had time.
I know it does get a little emotional when you're there and get to see it in person. Yeah, it is really impactful. So we've touched on, the challenges, the struggles that you had when you came to Canada, and you had established yourself in the business world in Denmark. And that really experience, as we were kind of chatting about, wasn't really recognized when you arrived in Canada. Is that something that needs to change to help immigrants?
It's a good question. I think it was 2007, 2008. I wanted to establish this new business, and it was called Exporting with Immigrants. So I wanted, and we went to ISANS at the time. We established this directory, I think 150 immigrants from all over the world. And we wanted companies in Nova Scotia to be able to call someone and hire an immigrant for a day or whatever time they needed.
Okay.
When they wanted to go to Poland or they wanted to go to China. And our immigrant community was a lot smaller back then.
Mm-hmm.
And they shouldn't just be networking. They should actually be paying this person, right?
Yeah.
If it was young people, maybe they wanted to see if they could develop, if they had contacts. So kind of matching the two, but also cutting down the sales cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people would know the culture. They would know who to talk to, maybe how to talk to them in the local languages. They may avoid some of all the mistakes that I made when I moved to Canada.
Yeah.
So that would be in recognition of what this person knew of their homeland.
Mm-hmm.
That has changed a lot since 2007 and 2008. But I think the cultural part is the biggest part. If you come with a master's from a university in the UK or in France, people understand it. They don't necessarily always understand all the things in between.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is culture. And that was what I struggled the most with. I don't know how many times I heard, so do you speak Dutch? No, because they do that in Holland, not in Denmark. And while I worked for a big American Commodore computer manufacturer, they were bought by a Dutch company, Escom, and people couldn't relate to that in North America. I was like, so it was easier to just say, we're not going to, okay, you're from over there. You're from over there. But not fully understanding, not perhaps putting the educational and the work experience on par with what we have. And I think we're a lot better at that today.
Yeah,
we were.
2007 was not that long ago. So it's amazing to see the changes and how fast it is. And those changes can be really positive for everyone. So it's amazing to see things change like that.
When I moved to Halifax, I couldn't watch my favorite soccer team. It's a British team, Liverpool. I couldn't watch the European Cup because in soccer, because they didn't show it anywhere. There was no streaming, right? I think it's probably only the last 10, 15 years. But the European Cup would be nothing. And I would close the office. I would take all the staff and we'll go down to the Elephant. And I can't remember what that bar was called. And say, please, can we please see it on your screens?
Yeah.
Culturally, we're just very different, even though we may look alike in a lot of ways, or language things, right? Local English is hard.
It is, yeah. When you were writing, or after you wrote your book, Tales from an Immigrant Entrepreneur, One Woman Story, you did a few book signings, and I saw some of the pictures, and, what an interesting, accomplishment. And not only that, but just to meet people and sign their books. Is there someone or a story, somebody that stood out at one of your book signings? Maybe someone that really took that book to heart?
Oh, there's many. Yeah, I did start to do a tour. Unfortunately, my father passed away.
I'm so sorry.
So I didn't get to do the full tour. But I'm doing an update of the book
Okay.
that talks about how we dealt with COVID. So hopefully that will be a little bigger this time. But a lot of people, particular maybe a woman in Newfoundland who came over. And she didn't want, I think she was uncomfortable approaching me.
Okay.
I think she was Indian. And she was in the back of the line, but she kept, when new people came in, she kept going further back in the line, or staying back in the line. And she did come up till the very end when everybody has almost gone. And she said that for her, she went to, I can't remember what it was called in Newfoundland, but it was equivalent to Dress for Success.
Okay.
And got this outfit so you could go to a job interview. And she read the book and she said, I went to the interview being me, but with your confidence.
Wow.
And she got the job.
Oh,
I'm getting almost emotional now. And she got the job. Like she said, that gave me the confidence. So, and I said that when I wrote the book, if I can change the life for one person, then it has done what it should do, right? But that was a lot of it. That was a lot of what people said. It gave me the confidence to keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's tough to get 50 no's.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get that not being an immigrant, but getting them in a foreign language and getting them in a country where you just feel more rejected because nobody is really interested in getting to know who you are. I think that's tough to overcome.
And the culture too, that you said, culture barriers for sure.
And that's mostly, that was the biggest story for me. It was people who said, I'm so glad you said it didn't work, because nobody says it doesn't work. There's all these self-help books on, I can do things.
Yeah.
And little things I have to fill out and methodical ways of doing things, but nobody says what doesn't work. That was a lot of it for people to say. You said this didn't work and it hurt, but...
Yeah, so, kind of accepting failure may happen, and that is part of, being realistic about anything in someone's life. We're all going to probably struggle and fail at one point, and it's about getting back up, right? Yeah,
it was funny because when you have to do the citizenship test, which I did very late in my journey, and I'm trying to thread carefully here, because we actually did an experiment. So all my male friends and all my female friends were helping me prepare for this test. And there are some questions in there, like, when was the Quebec pension funds established? Something that's...
I can't roll my eyes enough.
Learned by heart.
Who knows that?
so that, I can't remember, it was 20 or 25 questions. But all my female friends, when I passed, I had 2 wrong.
Okay.
All my female friends said, which 2 did you get wrong? All my male friends said, awesome, great, congratulations.
Doesn't take much.
They couldn't care less about the ones that were wrong.
Yeah.
Right? But the women, the girls, focused on the 2 that was wrong. And I think I'm not making this into a gender thing at all, but I think that's a lot of it, is the focus on what you do wrong instead of all the successes that you have. So having your wrongs and saying, well, I learned something from that, just move on.
Yeah. Use it for the future.
That is such a key lesson.
Mm-hmm. So when I was looking at pictures of you during your book signing tour, there was also another picture that stood out of you with some sled dogs. and you looked totally cool. Is that something that you do often? What kind of hobbies do you have? What do you like to do?
My heart is very close to Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
And that picture that you saw is probably from Ilulissat in Greenland. And ever since I was a little girl, my mom and dad lived and worked in Greenland for many years. My two biggest siblings are born in Greenland. So I always wanted to go on a sled dog tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 2009, started working in Greenland. We later opened an office in Greenland. But this one time, I got to be on the sled with all the sled dogs for work in one of the most beautiful parts in the world in Ilulissat in Greenland. And that was a dream. And it was work. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. If I could, I said this since I was a little girl, it's not a hobby, but if I could, when I would get older, I would have an orphanage, a dog kennel, and then I added a winery when I got a little older. So.
That's very busy days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And what is that still on your list of things to do? All those things?
I'm in that age group where aging parents, I now have my mom left, is it takes up a lot of room. And it's something that I want to do. It's something that I have the luxury to do. So that doesn't leave a lot of time for hobbies or all the other things that you like to do. I think that in 10 years and 20 years, I'll still be working in some shape or form, not in the quantity, hopefully, that I'm doing now. But traveling, which I do for work, is also a hobby. I love to see live music. I love to go and watch soccer wherever I am. I see the Reggae Boys play in Jamaica, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to combine the things I like to do with work.
Mm-hmm.
So my personal life and my work life kind of melts a little bit together. And I don't have a good vision of which one is going to be turned down first.
Yeah. And when you're traveling, and I read online too that you've been over 90 countries for your work. Is there any favorite places? I know you said you love Greenland. Is there another place that you just look so forward to visiting?
Oh, but I can't pick
I know.
one.
I know. I'm putting you on the spot.
It's so many different things and so many different. No, I can't pick one. I mean, they all have a special place in my heart for some experience or another. If I could pick any people in the world, I would pick people in Newfoundland. It's the nicest people in the entire world. But the winters, oh my. Beauty. I mean, Greenland is gorgeous. People as well. Honduras is fantastic. No, I can't pick one.
It's too hard. If you could redo your immigration to Canada, is there something that you would change? One thing, two things? What would you do different?
Of personal things I did, or would I change things for people in the future to come?
I think personal things.
I think I learned a good way, but this is the way I learn in life. I'm a tactile learner, so learning by doing fits well with me. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I think I could probably have added a couple of years to my life if I had been better prepared the cultural part.
Right.
If I researched more before I moved, if I understood the culture better. Mm-hmm. But then again, all the things that happened in that whole really tough process of getting established and getting recognized have probably helped me shape what I am today and where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I might have started differently and worked somewhere first rather than starting my own.
Okay.
Now that piece on the Dracker and that on the fishing Dracker and on the scalp Dracker, on the working with Hubble Industries was a short period in my life in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I might have extended that in another company to get more experience, and my way to success would have been shorter. But then again, I'm not hoping to be a huge company and a publicly traded company or something. So I don't mind that the road is long. I'm not looking for that road to be short. Easier at times, maybe, but not shorter. So not a lot of things. No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I think that's really positive. You wouldn't change much. You learned, I guess, from the experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Pernille, and thank you to everyone for joining us today for this episode of Our Guest Is. If you don't want to miss the next episode, make sure you subscribe. You can find us on myeastcoastexperience.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and YouTube. Plus, don't forget you can follow My East Coast Experience on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thanks again, and I hope you join us for our next episode.